Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Vanessa Mercado Taylor here, your professor for Introduction to Cinema. Today we will learn about cinematography. In my opinion, the most difficult of all the elements to describe and analyze. Let's watch a short video.
Cinematography 101. What is cinematography? We love cinema. No matter how much the formats, audiences, and distribution may have changed, we've been telling stories in motion ever since the Lumiere brothers first brought us this gift. And since that inception, great thinkers have attempted to explain our connection with it. They have said that movies are dreams, that they are windows into worlds and lives that are not our own, that they allow us to sculpt in time. Whoa. But as poetic as these descriptions are, they don't quite capture the specificity of the art form and our ability to manipulate it. For if this is about the art of visual storytelling, then the heart of cinema is cinematography. Now, cinematography is not only about how we capture the action of a scene, it is how we show that action to the audience. Which just means that cinematography is all about communicating with the viewer.
Take it or leave it.
But because cinematography is often so beautiful and so emotional, it makes us assume that the murky process of filming movies must be built on some murky instinct. But instead, like all disciplines, cinematography is built on principles of concrete understanding, because cinema is a language.
What?
It sounds so simple, but it's like zooming in on the atomic level. You get to see how it really works on people. Think about it in terms of a language analogy. Words have meanings, right? Sometimes a few of them. But they have clear definitions. We have verbs, nouns, sentence structure. These rules are critical to our use of language, but also the way we build on them, evolve them, invert them, and use them ironically. The key to understanding is that rules are at the heart of how we speak to each other. And our understanding of cinematography works the exact same way. Now, you may have all these things you want to do and these cool shot ideas and you want to try and mimic or invent, but there are still the basics of cinematic language that must be reckoned with. We must zero in on the specific words and meanings, embrace the glossary of high angles, low angles, wide lenses, depth of field, color palette. The more we understand the meaning of these words, the better we understand the language of cinema. Like language, you must learn how to speak.
Yeah, whatever.
Say you were filming a scene and wanted to show that someone was really scared. The first tool of cinematic language you would reach for is the high angle. The subject looks down on the victim cowering below, showing the person in a place of being threatened. Now you could say, oh, come on. It's just showing a person scared, and that's why you think that. But the language of cinema does more than that. It emphasizes. It's not just about the information, aka what's happening on screen, it's the way that information is being shown. The way it evokes emotion and makes it more scary.
Oh, you guys made me eat!
The way it goes right past the connection of our brains and dives into our nervous system. And it's able to do this because it understands perspective. To wit, imagine if you pursued the opposite tack. Say we wanted to no longer be with the monster looking down on the scared human, and instead wanted to emphasize with her feeling. In that case, we would switch to a low angle, with her looking up at the monster. Our perspective would be her perspective. The monster would tower over us with menace and violence and make us feel the same way she does. The great thing is we instinctively understand this. These are the kind of things that happen in movies all the time, just with slighter and more subtle emphasis. You can think of that famous scene in The Graduate where Dustin Hoffman is being guided around at the party by his parents. They take up the sides of the frame, dominating over him as he shrinks into the lower center. It's the same exact principle as the overt horror movie shots we talked about before, just used in a much more subtle context.
Oh, yes, I see.
Now, cinematography is obviously not a series of mechanical, static angles. Cinema is alive. It moves. And just like with angles, the way the camera moves tells us something too. The smoothness of a Steadicam or a tracking shot instills us with confidence, ease, and an omnipresent godlike ability to go through action with clarity and impunity. A docu-style organic movement makes us feel uneasy, like we are witnessing the real world. Dutch angles make us feel like the world is off-kilter, askewed, and we can use any number of techniques to go beyond the layers of surface and peer in at the people who lay under them, to unfurl the world before us. These tactics reveal the heart of cinematography. Where you put the camera doesn't just allow you to tell the story, it tells you what to think and feel about the story you are watching. We said it before, but cinema is effectively the movie god's view. And sometimes it can seem like this movie god is actively investigating people. Sometimes this movie god is trying to show us something about these people they don't even want to show themselves. Because the god of a movie universe is the storytellers behind the camera. Therefore, it is up to you to decide what you wish to communicate, to emphasize, to make us feel something. You may think that you want your action heroes to be unstoppable, cool badasses, but doing so can easily lose the dramatic effect of a fallible hero in danger, making the audience feel that way too.
We are going to die!
Either way, it's all about what you want to communicate to your audience. Cinema is a language, so it's time we start talking.
Alright, let's break down some of what you might have heard in that video. Cinematography is how filmmakers capture the action of a scene and how filmmakers show that action to the audience. It is built on principles of concrete understanding. Cinematography is the process of capturing moving images on film, making decisions about lighting, camera work, including angles, heights, and movement of the camera. The director's vision shapes the process of rendering the mise-en-scene on film, but the cinematographer, or DP for director of photography, makes very specific decisions about how the movie will be filmed. The DP is responsible for cinematographic properties of the shot, such as film stock, lighting, and lenses, framing of the shot, which is proximity to the camera, depth, camera angle and height, camera movement and point of view, speed and length of the shot, and special effects. Although these categories overlap, we will look at each one separately. First, we will look at film stock. The cinematographer is responsible for choosing a medium with which to record the film. Available to them are film stocks of various sizes and speeds, videotape, and direct-to-digital media. The two basic types of film stock are black and white and color. Even though more movies are being shot on digital media, the majority of feature films are still shot on traditional film stock. Film stock is actual film. Many filmmakers now are questioning whether they should record directly to a digital file. Let's watch an explanation of this dilemma.
There are plenty of pros to continue to archive films that were made on film, to keep them on film. And the main reason is that film already has a proven track record. Number one, there are films that are over 100 years old now, and we have studied how we can maintain a film's lifespan to the greatest extent that we can, and it looks like if it's properly stored, it can last over 100 years and up to 400 years, depending on the stock and how many times it goes in and out of the vault. And the other really great thing about film is that the technology, for the most part, basically hasn't changed over the history of the art form. So I can, well, the projectionist probably wouldn't like it if I took nitrate up to his shiny new booth, but theoretically, I could take a film that was made in 1910 and a film made in 2010, and I could run them both on this projector because it's the same mechanical system that's been used since the advent of film. And that is reassuring because that means that you'll always be able to read back your film. And even if you don't have machines anymore, it's analog. So you hold it up to a light and you can see what's on it. Archiving digitally doesn't have that lifespan. The media that you would archive digital files on does not have the same shelf life as film, number one, whether you're talking about a hard drive, an optical disc, or a magnetic tape. Number two, the technology for reading back digital files is constantly changing. There is no digital system that can match film projection and printing. Software changes literally within 6 to 12 months. So I'm not talking about, okay, if anyone here who was word processing back in 1988 would like to boot up their document for me, you try sticking those floppy disks into a computer, you're not going to get very far. I mean, the equipment actually changes, but so does the software. There's this great cautionary tale that came out of Pixar Studios when they were remastering the first Toy Story film for DVD in 2000. The original had come out in 1995, and they didn't want to use film. They wanted to get, remaster it from the digital files. So they started to re-render, to remaster them, and realized that the software they had used to animate the characters in the backgrounds back in 1995 was made with version 2.0 software. They were up to version 14.6. And so the program had changed so considerably, it didn't even recognize those files as being made by that program. That's a real danger, too, that your technology is going to continue to evolve. And the only way to address that is to keep migrating it into the next version, which takes time and costs money, and is complicated too. I mean, anyone who's transferred a lot of data knows that there are bumps on the road between point A and point B. It's not just saying copy, and you can count on every 0 and 1 getting across to the other side. You have to do a lot of checking to make sure that your data hasn't been corrupted in any way, that the file structures are all intact, and that they'll be able to be reread. So film is still the way to go, and it's still a lot less expensive. But now, since roughly the mid-90s, digital has been such a key part of the post-production process for films that saving the original camera negative of a film that has been scanned, and it's called a digital intermediate process. It's scanned into the digital realm, and all of the visual effects and all the final color grading, everything is done digitally, and then new negatives are output to make prints. So for something like The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, that original negative doesn't have 80% of the final artistic decisions that were made that are represented in the final look of the film, photographed into its negative. And then you can also think about films that are captured digitally, like the director David Fincher has made his last 3 films, Zodiac, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and now Social Network, using digital cameras that record onto hard drives. So there is no film until the very end of the process, when they record out the negative and make a release print that's screened in the theater. So in those cases, you have no choice. I mean, it was born digital, so it should be archived digitally. But how to do that reliably and inexpensively is something that Hollywood is still trying to figure out. Well, now that I've depressed myself, any other questions? Yes.
Although most films are now shot in color, there are many exceptions. Good Night and Good Luck from 2005, Persepolis from 2007, Sin City, which was filmed in black and white with color added in post-production, Pi from 1998, The Man Who Wasn't There from 2007, and many more. Some films like Memento use both black and white and color. Which stock is right for a particular film depends on the story being told. It is important to understand that black and white does not mean no color. Black and white and the ranges in between are color. Black and white offers compositional possibilities and cinematographic effects that are impossible with color film stock. It has distinct contrast and hard edges. Black and white films emphasize texture through shadows and spatial depth through lighting and lenses. Now let's talk about color. Film artists and technicians can manipulate the colors in a film as completely as they can any other formal element. It is not necessarily realistic. In Barry Lyndon from 1975, color is used expressively to convey both a historical period and a painterly world of soft pastels. It can be used in a symbolic way to emphasize, underscore, or mute the dramatic or emotional nature of each shot. In Pleasantville, in 1998, color symbolizes freedom, knowledge, and self-expression. In the opening shot of The Color of Pomegranates from 1968, which is associated with the poet's youth, we see bright pomegranates. In the closing images, which tell the story of the poet's last moments, they use mostly grayish, brown earth tones. It can be used to represent a heightened reality through exaggeration. In The Fall, the subplot line uses exaggerated color to highlight the fact that it is a story being told. Juliet of the Spirits tells the story of a housewife who increasingly lives in a world of her dreams and memories. This alternate reality has exaggerated color versus her actual reality. Now let's discuss lighting, which we talked about briefly during mise-en-scene lesson. During pre-production, most designers include an idea of the lighting in their sketches, but in actual production, the cinematographer determines the lighting once the camera setups are chosen. Lighting is a key component of composition. It creates our sense of cinematic space by illuminating people and things, creating highlights and shadows, and defining shapes and textures. Quality of light refers to whether the light is hard or soft. The way the cinematographer lights an actor will suggest an impression of the character to the audience. Here we see an example of soft lighting. Here we see an example of hard lighting. Angle and direction help produce contrasts and shadows that suggest the location of the scene, its mood, and the time of day. The most common technique is the 3-point system. 3 sources, each aimed from a different direction: key light, fill light, and backlight. Key light is the primary source positioned to one side, creating hard shadows. Fill light, opposite key light, adjusts the depth of the shadows created. Backlight, positioned behind and above to create highlights along the edges as a means to separate subject from background and add 3-dimensionality. Low-key lighting is when little or no fill light is used. The ratio between bright illumination and deep shadows is very high. It creates an overall gloomy atmosphere that we see in horror films, mysteries, psychological dramas, crime stories, and film noir, where its contrasts between light and dark often imply ethical judgments. High-key lighting produces an image with very little contrast between the darks and the lights. It is flat illumination and does not call particular attention to the subject being photographed. Lighting from below creates eerie, ominous shadows on the actor's face by reversing the normal placement of illumination and shadow. Lighting from above can make a character appear threatening, mysterious, or vulnerable. Short focal length lens, also known as wide-angle lens, produces wide-angle views. It makes the subjects on the screen appear farther apart than they actually are. Because this lens elongates depth, characters or objects moving at a normal speed from background to foreground through the stretched depth might appear to be moving faster than they actually are. Wide-angle lenses show a vast location while maintaining foreground and background in focus. Long focal length lens, also known as the telephoto lens, brings distant objects close, makes subjects look closer together than they do in real life, and flattens space and depth in the process. A subject moving from the background toward the camera might appear to be barely moving at all. This image from Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon shows the flattening effect of a long focal length lens. The marching soldier's forward progress seems more gradual as a result. Depth of field is a property of the lens that permits the cinematographer to decide what planes or areas of the image will be in focus. As a result, depth of field helps create emphasis, either on one or more selected planes or figures, or on the whole image. Rack focus is the change of the point of focus from one subject to another. This technique guides our attention to a new, clearly focused point of interest, while blurring the previous subject in the frame. Now we will discuss framing of the shot, which includes proximity to the camera, depth, angle and height, camera movement, and POV. Framing is the process by which the cinematographer determines what will appear within the borders of the image during a shot. Proximity to the camera. The most commonly used shots in a movie are extreme long shot, medium long shot, medium shot, medium close-up, and extreme close-up. They all refer to the distance between the subject and the camera. The proximity of the camera to the subject affects our emotional response to them. Extreme long shot covers a great distance. The subject is often too small to be recognized. We get a wide view of the location and is also called an establishing shot because it establishes the location. In the long shot, also known as the full body shot, we see the character's full body and some of the surrounding. The medium long shot shows characters from the knees up. It also shows some of the background. The medium shot shows character from the waist up or full figured if seated. It is the most frequently used type of shot because it replicates our human experience of proximity without intimacy. The medium close-up shows a character from the middle of the chest to the top of the head. It provides a view of the face that catches minor changes in expression and also provides some detail about the character's posture. The close-up shows the full head, sometimes also the shoulders. It provides an exclusive view of a character's emotions or states of mind. The extreme close-up is a very close shot of some detail. The extreme close-up is wrought with tension and conflict. Next, we'll look at depth. Because the image of the movie screen is two-dimensional and thus appears flat, one of the most compelling challenges faced by cinematographers has been how to give that image an illusion of depth. One way they do this is through deep focus cinematography. By using a special lens, they keep all planes in sharp focus. Here, notice that the steeple, flag, and first helmet are all at different planes, but are all in sharp focus. Another way they can create depth is through deep space composition, which places subjects at various planes. Here, you see she is in sharp focus, while the foreground and background are not. This gives the shot depth. To analyze angle and height, we look at camera angle. The camera's shooting angle is the level and height of the camera in relation to the subject. The basic angles are eye level, high angle, low angle, Dutch angle, and aerial view. Eye level is made from the observer's eye level. It implies a neutral attitude. High angle, also called downshot, is when the camera is above the action. It implies the observer's sense of superiority to the subject. The low angle is when the camera is below the action. It places the observers in the position of feeling helpless in the presence of an obviously superior force. This shot from The Shining actually plays against the expectation that the subject is superior. Here, the low shot emphasizes her anxiety, fear, and vulnerability. Remember that filmmakers can play against what is expected. The Dutch angle is when the camera is tilted from its normal horizontal and vertical position so that it no longer is straight. It gives the viewer the impression that the world in the frame is out of balance. The aerial view is an extreme type of point-of-view shot. It is taken from an aircraft or very high crane. It implies the observer's omniscience. Now we will discuss camera movement. The basic types of shots involving movement are pan shot, tilt shot, dolly shot, tracking shot, which is a type of dolly shot, zoom, crane shot, handheld camera, and Steadicam. Pan shot is the horizontal movement of the camera. It offers us a larger, more panoramic view. It makes us aware of relationships between subjects that are too far apart to be shown together in the frame. It allows us to follow people or objects, and it attempts to replicate what we see when we turn our heads to survey a scene or follow a character. Let's look at an example of a panning shot. A tilt shot is the vertical movement of a camera, for example, starting at the bottom of a tree and tilting up to the branches. A dolly shot is taken by a camera fixed to a wheeled support known as a dolly. Dolly in is when the camera moves toward the subject. Dolly out is when the camera moves away from the subject. Zoom is when movement is created by a lens rather than actual camera movement. Let's look at a video that explains this difference.
Today I'd like to discuss the difference between zooming and a dolly shot. Right off the top, we have to understand that a zoom shot is simply a magnification of the image. Whereas when you actually dolly, you're moving through space, you displace objects, and you give the audience a much more three-dimensional feel on this two-dimensional surface that we're viewing. Now, as we just stated, a dolly move into the subject is a three-dimensional move that, in essence, displaces objects and gives the three-dimensional feeling.
A tracking shot is a type of dolly shot where the camera moves alongside the action on a track. On a dolly, handheld ropes or other equipment. A crane shot is made from a camera mounted on an elevating arm that is mounted on a vehicle capable of moving by its own power. The crane has the full freedom of horizontal and vertical movement as well as the capability of lifting the camera high off the ground. A handheld camera is held by the camera operator and they're shaky. Shakiness implies a loss of control. Let's look at an example from the Blair Witch Project.
What's your take on the Blair Witch at this point? Do you think she exists?
I don't know.
I gave you back the map, Heather.
I gave you the map.
I gave you back the map.
I don't.
Lost, admit that first, because...
We're not, I know we're not lost. Hello? Hello?
They're all over the place.
Holy shit.
And it's all because of me that we're here now. Hungry, and cold, and hunted.
A Steadicam is a camera actually worn by a camera person and is much smoother, faster, and intimate than the handheld camera. Another aspect of framing is point of view, or POV. We have already discussed point of view in the mise-en-scene. Make sure that you review this section if you are unclear about POV. Up until now, we have only discussed the spatial elements, how space in the frame is used. Now we will discuss speed and length, the temporal elements, how time is used. We will look at slow motion, fast motion, and the long take. Slow motion decelerates action so that it happens less rapidly than the real action. One effect of slow motion is to emphasize the power of memory. It can also suggest a character's heightened awareness of someone or something. The long take. A normal shot lasts 10 seconds. The long take can run anywhere from 1 to 10 minutes. It permits the internal development of a story involving 2 or more lines of action without the use of editing. Let's look at an example from Children of Men.
You okay? How is she?
I know it.
Long takes are rare because of the choreography and coordination needed, not only from the actors, but also from special effects, sound, camera movement, and more. When done well, however, they can cause tension and suspense because we are so used to the very short takes. Because of the complexity of special effects in this high-tech era, we will not be learning about special effects in this class. This concludes our lesson on cinematography. Make sure that you review anything that seems confusing and that you took good notes. Have a good day.